Ransom of the Seven Ships is an unpopular game. Most people think it's one of the 5 worst games of the series. It is a pretty terrible game. It's like they took a normal game and they stripped away most of the good parts. I remember before the game came out, everyone was super excited to see Nancy's friends for the first time. That was cool! It was also cool to have a culprit return from a previous game for the first and only time. The scenery is pretty good, and I like most of the puzzles. I'm giving the game 3 points for all those things I liked. Everything else about the game is mostly bad. The story is that Bess won a free vacation in the Bahamas in an online sweepstakes. Bess is an idiot, so she doesn't realize the sweepstakes and the website are fake. The vacation is for an ecotourism resort on Dread Isle. Dread Isle! Just like Danger on Deception Island, nobody questions the openly sinister name. Nancy arrives by float plane. The chatty pilot talks about how isolated the place is, and how it's too far to go anywhere on foot. That's probably a lie, because water-powered golf carts going on sand aren't that much faster than walking. But I guess the game needs some excuse for why George never goes anywhere. There's a scene where George runs to the dock and tries to stop the pilot. This is a good-looking scene, but it makes no sense if you think about it. George knows where the dock is, and she knew the plane was coming. Why didn't she wait at the dock to stop the pilot? Why did she hide inside? My guess is that she had a badly timed bathroom emergency. George says Bess has been kidnapped. That's a good, dramatic story. Bess is a character that players know. She's been in over a dozen games. She's not a kidnapping victim we've never heard of before, like Matt in the previous game. Come to think of it, why did they do 2 kidnapping mysteries back to back? I don't think Bess's kidnapping is well done. Maya's kidnapping in the final scene was much better. Nancy was very emotional and angry. She was desperate to find her friend. In contrast, Nancy doesn't show much concern for Bess's kidnapping. The strongest emotion she shows is mild annoyance. Why doesn't Nancy care more? She treats this life or death situation like a harmless scavenger hunt, and that hurts the game overall. If you miss the first 5 minutes of the game, you wouldn't know that someone's life is in danger. The drama and tension are absent. I'm not saying every game has to be super dramatic, but I expect more drama out of a premise like Nancy's best friend is kidnapped. I think George is okay in this game. I'm not sure why they got a new voice actress for her. The previous voice actress was fine. George looks good in the cutscenes, but during normal conversations, her arms look bad. Her forearms look like they were copy-pasted from another character, and they forgot to smooth out the tan lines. I wish George played a bigger role in this game. As it is, she is kind of useless. All she does is stay by the front desk trying to fix a satellite phone. She mostly ignores Nancy instead of helping with the case. You can switch between George and Nancy by using the walkie-talkies in the closet. That was a good idea, which didn't work because George is limited to the front desk area. She can't explore the island and solve puzzles there, so there's no good reason to play as George, outside of the 2 times you're forced to do so. George says they got a note from the Gibsons, encouraging them to check out the sunset at Sangre Beach. Bess went alone and never came back. The game tries to cast suspicion on the Gibsons, but I think that was a failure. The Gibsons are obviously not here and not the culprits. The kidnapper left a note for Nancy. I don't want to overthink this, but the culprit's plan was to kidnap both of Nancy's friends. George escaped the trap by a fluke. So why do all the culprit's messages only reference one victim? Unless the culprit secretly has a printer hidden somewhere, these messages he prepared long in advance should mention 2 victims. The kidnapper's note says they'll give Bess back if Nancy finds a hidden treasure. The treasure belonged to El Toro, whose fleet of 7 ships crashed on the island centuries ago. Next to George is a supply closet. It's locked with a puzzle, which is pretty good. It's my favorite puzzle in the first part of the game. You want to turn all the squares to black. When you click on a square, its color changes along with the squares next to it. Inside the closet are walkie-talkies, diving equipment, and an air tank. There's a map with markings on every place where Nancy solved a mystery. George says it's probably just a coincidence. George is not very smart. In the corner is Cuckoo the parrot, who's the granddaughter of Lulu from Curse of Blackmore Manor. Cuckoo is fun and has some fancy animations, but I'm sorry, I would not hesitate to cut Cuckoo out of this game if it meant getting an actual character. If you give Cuckoo a guava, she'll do a trick or give you a hint. Why can't George give you hints? George normally gives good hints over the phone. Why does she stink at giving hints in person? Nancy sees the outside shed is locked. While getting the key from George, Nancy says this entire thing is a setup for the culprit to get treasure. George suggests that the culprit is somebody who's out for revenge against Nancy. This is another way the game is a disappointment. It mostly wastes the idea of a culprit returning for revenge. The culprit's revenge is more of an afterthought. He clearly cares more about the treasure than anything else. The culprit could have been a totally new character, not a returning culprit, and the story would not be any different. That's how unimportant the culprit's revenge is to the grand scheme of the game. Inside the shed is a shovel, a water system, and a sail bin. You open the sail bin using the flag poster in the lobby. The poster matches flags to numbers. It's an okay puzzle. The water puzzle is not as good. It's too confusing, and it takes a while to figure out what's happening. I think the puzzle would have been better with a different interface. Maybe one with a sign that shows how much water is being sent out. That way players don't have to divide into 60 in their heads. The idea is that you open valves to the engines. When you press one of the blue buttons, 60 milliliters of water are spread out equally among all the open engines. Your goal is to get them to equal 100 in 5 turns. So you have to divide into 60, then add among 6 different engines at the same time? It's kind of tough. Once you solve the puzzle, you can ride the golf cart to other places. Navigation in this game is not very good. I don't like it. Driving was better in The Secret of the Old Clock, where the roads are big and mostly go in straight lines. Here, the pathways are too narrow, and they're mostly curved, which is a problem because if you go off the road, Nancy instantly slows down. You can only reach the Bat Stoop and Primate Research Facility by taking long, winding roads. Not to mention, it's just kind of slow in general. Nancy does not move quickly. It's almost like the developers purposely made traveling as slow as possible just to make this game longer. Nancy goes to Shark Cove for the digging challenge. We kind of get to see Nancy from above here, which is cool. And I kind of like the idea of digging up buried treasure in the pirate-themed game. Yeah, the pirate theme is pretty cool. I mean, we've got monkeys, we've got a parrot, buried treasure, it's all good stuff. The puzzle is to walk around based on the landscape and the instructions. You always go opposite of the direction of items. So if there's a rock to your right, you go left. You also have to multiply, so if there are 3 rocks, you go the number of steps on the instructions times 3. The problem with this puzzle is that it's too long. You've got 15 different instructions, giving you a grand total of 91 steps. Ugh. I would have stopped around 40 steps. I tend to lose my place on the instructions around number 8 or so. Yeah, the paper is not easy to read. When you're done, you right-click to dig with your shovel. Nancy digs up a box containing El Toro's journal. The journal itself is a letter substitution code. Basically, each symbol represents a different letter. You have to guess which symbol is which letter until you have a full message. This is an okay puzzle. I wish Nancy said something once you get the answer right. She says something once you get the answer right with the battery puzzle and the golf cart puzzle, but not this one. There's nothing to indicate when you've got it right, which fooled me into thinking I didn't have the right puzzle solution. You have to do the puzzle 3 times. Each time, the symbols mean something different. When you solve all 3 versions of the puzzle, you can read the journal. It says El Toro set up lots of puzzles to hide his treasure. 5 of the journal entries still have words in code. That forces players to solve the underwater Sudoku puzzle first. It's the only journal entry that's completely untranslated. The puzzle is by a sunken ship southeast of the island. You can explore there if you have the sail and diving gear. Sailing a boat is kind of fun, but about halfway through the game, I get bored with it and find sailing to be slow and bothersome, just like traveling with the golf cart. The wind always seems to be going in the wrong direction, slowing you down to a crawl. In fact, it seems like the game is programmed so you can never ride with the wind for too long. To solve the Sudoku puzzle, you have to meet Johnny Roll. He's the only person on the island, and he lives right where Bess was kidnapped. He has her sandal, he carries an oar like a weapon, and he even has kidnapping nets set up everywhere. How does Nancy not know Johnny is the culprit? It's so obvious that he's the culprit. Even if he wasn't suspicious, it would still be obvious Johnny's the culprit because there are no other suspects. He's the only person here. That's a major problem with the game. The mystery aspect is terrible. The culprit is so transparently obvious, it's like there is no mystery. Like George, Johnny looks different in the cutscenes compared to his normal conversations. He's definitely got darker skin in the first cutscene, although it's a little hard to tell because the camera's upside down. Johnny is wearing the exact same clothes as Denal from the previous game. They just slapped a different head and hands on Denal's model. It's kind of sad they used such an obvious character design shortcut in a game with only one suspect. It's not like they had that many characters to worry about. Johnny claims to be a Jamaican beach bum who likes to be left alone. He says he didn't see anything when Bess was kidnapped. He's stranded on the island because his boat was destroyed by the monkeys. Johnny says there are 3 or 4 strange men hiding out on the island. I think it's weird how the game goes back and forth between pretending the Gibsons are on the island and pretending a group of people are on the island. It would have been better if the game had picked one fake-out suspect and stuck with it the whole time. Johnny doesn't want to give Nancy his metal detector, but she refuses to take no for an answer. It makes me mad that Nancy is okay with Johnny's obvious lies about who he is and what happened to Bess, but borrowing a metal detector is where she draws the line. Why does she care more about the metal detector than saving Bess's life? It also annoys me that Nancy says she's going to stay here and bother Johnny until she gets what she wants. When George does the same thing, Johnny ignores her. Why does bugging Johnny work for Nancy but not for George? Johnny gives you the metal detector if you get his compass from the monkeys. So it's off to the primate research facility in the upper right part of the island. We've got 3 monkeys here. The monkey with the notched ear is on the left, while the monkey with the extra toe is on the right. I honestly can't tell the difference between the monkeys. They all look the same to me. The left monkey has a throwing game. You want to click on the targets as quickly as possible. The mango and crab targets give you the most points. You get 8 throws and the challenge goes on for 3 rounds. It's my favorite of the monkey games, but it goes a little too fast for me. If they slowed the monkey down, or if the monkey aimed for the wrong targets somewhat, it'd be better. I definitely had the misfortune of being forced to play the monkey games for over 20 minutes because I kept losing. There should be an easy mode, which automatically kicks in if you lose a game 3 times. That's what happens with Scopa in game 18, right? If you lose too much, the game gives you a pity victory. When you win a game, you get to pick a prize. I wish you got to see the prizes ahead of time, so you could know if it's worth the hassle. One prize is always a guava, and the other prizes are usually random junk. The left monkey has Johnny's compass, the right monkey has a colored dial. The right monkey's puzzle is a color game, where you and the monkey fill in as much of the board as possible. I don't like this game. The board is made up of all these weird shapes, and I can never tell which areas are the largest. Just that part of the challenge trips me up. The other part of the challenge is to pick spots carefully, because if 2 shapes are touching, they can't be the same color. You can easily get yourself stuck with nowhere to place your colors. While this game is annoying, I think it would be fine with different layouts. The third monkey game is the worst. Not only is it very slow, but it's also random. There is nothing you can do to affect the game's outcome. All you can do is press the spin button and hope you get lucky. You're playing against 3 other monkeys, so the odds are against you. It wouldn't matter if this game had a different board layout, it would be tough no matter what. With Johnny's metal detector, you can find the Sudoku puzzle by the sunken ship. I like the challenge of swimming around in the water trying to find the buried treasure. It's a little weird that the top of the screen has 2 different error meters showing the same thing, but that doesn't ruin the challenge. While finding the treasure chest is fun, solving the underwater Sudoku puzzle is not fun. You have a time limit of 400 seconds. I don't think that's long enough to find the treasure chest and solve the puzzle on your first try. You might even have to refill on air a few times to solve this puzzle. I'm so used to doing Sudoku with numbers that doing it with colors is an extra level of difficulty. It's almost like the game expects players to copy out the puzzle on a separate piece of paper and solve it on their own. Once you solve the puzzle, you get a colored dial and an astrolabe. Zoom in on the astrolabe to see the symbols you need to decode the rest of El Toro's journal. This time, one symbol can represent multiple letters, which is a good way to change up the original puzzle. Unlike the first time around, all 5 pages use the same code. You have to go back and forth between the 5 entries to decode everything. I think I prefer this version of the puzzle. It's a little harder to figure out what the symbols are, but it's still easier because you're decoding a handful of words, not pages of text. Now you can tackle the other puzzles for dials. The easiest one is at Blue Hole. After Nancy sees a monkey stole a pulley there, she can win the pulley in the color game. She goes back to Blue Hole and puts the pulley into place. As El Toro's journal says, you have to place 6 ropes with 30 feet left over. You do this by making 2 triangles, which both have a side running along the 2 pulleys on the right. El Toro's journal mentions a specific type of bats. The bat display in the lobby says these bats respond to number 16 on the sonar machine. The sonar machine is broken. You have to put various batteries onto the circuit board. The puzzle is to move them around so they all fit. It's an okay puzzle. The sonar still needs a battery. Johnny gives you the battery if you get a beacon for him. It's a flag northwest of the island. It's not too tough to find. I'm not sure why they added that challenge, actually. Once the sonar is fixed, Nancy goes to Bat Steep. You have to climb around the wall and find the different bat caves. Climbing is not fun at all. The whole time, rocks are falling on top of you. You have to dodge them, but the game doesn't give you enough time to dodge. Avoiding the rocks is mostly a matter of luck. I tend to die a lot, and it's annoying. When you find the correct cave, Nancy finds a button. This closes the cave entrance. Nancy says, "Well, that was kind of dumb." I think that's what most people say when they finish playing this game. Nancy hears footsteps outside. But how? It's a small ledge that you can only reach by climbing for minutes. How did the culprit get close enough for Nancy to hear them? The cave has a beam of light. You want to rotate mirrors so the light reaches the right-hand side of the screen. You can't see the mirrors, so you're sort of forced to guess where they are. I like this puzzle, although I think it would have been better if it wasn't in the dark. Once you solve it, you get a colored dial and a key for the underwater symbols. Nancy's walkie-talkie starts making noise, which is your hint to call George for help. George goes to Bat Steep. I guess she runs all the way there because she doesn't have a golf cart. She should stop by the beach and get Bess's golf cart on her way back. Nancy doesn't give George a ride back on the golf cart, which is rude of her. George has to climb to the correct cave. The wall has a cool skull and crossbones design above a camel puzzle. Nancy tries to encourage George, but it feels like Nancy is being condescending about it. You can do this, George, okay? When I first played the game, I thought this was a great puzzle. It's a pretty challenging jigsaw puzzle, which turns into a 3x3 slider puzzle. It's a creative double puzzle. But whenever I replay the game, the puzzle's kind of a hassle. Even if you have a picture of the solution, it still takes a while to solve it. Maybe if the jigsaw puzzle was 20 pieces instead of about 35, it would be more tolerable. Once you're done, the cave door opens. George says she's making progress with the satellite phone. And wait, Why isn't Nancy the one who's fixing the phone? Nancy just fixed the bat sonar. She probably could solve the phone puzzle pretty easily. In the corner of the cave, Nancy can find Johnny Roll's driver's license. It says he's John Poole from Australia. If you confront Johnny, he takes off his nose ring and his dreadlocks. He also changes his accent. He says he's an accountant on the run from dangerous criminals. Wherever he goes, he changes his name and appearance. The secret Australian subplot is optional, and the end of the game totally ignores it. I wish we got an explanation. The culprit went through all the trouble of making a fake Australian ID. Why? How does it help him at all? He's already in disguise. Why does he need a disguise for his disguise? The whole thing is a weird plot twist that doesn't make sense, and it certainly doesn't make the game any better. In fact, the disguise stuff makes the game a lot worse. The game was officially discontinued in 2020 over the fact that the culprit is disguised as a person of a different ethnicity. It's racist for a white New Yorker to dress up like a black Jamaican. I wonder if anyone from Her Interactive questioned the disguise when they were making this game. Twice, the culprit leaves a note for Nancy outside of the lobby. How did George not notice him do this? The messages resemble the ones from Game 2, which is a nice subtle clue to the culprit's identity. The next big puzzle is getting an astrolabe set up at the top of Bat Steep. Monkeys are blocking the way. The monkey display in the lobby reveals they want a sea urchin from the sunken ship. You have to get one so the monkeys will move. It's kind of a cool scene. Nancy throws the urchin and the monkey makes an amazing diving catch. I do like that animation. El Toro's journal says the astrolabe must be half a fathom tall, the same height as Cuckoo's perch. Cuckoo refuses to give it to you unless you find her a replacement perch. There are about 6 pieces of driftwood scattered throughout the game. You have to find the correct one. It is super annoying if you take the wrong one many times in a row. Cuckoo keeps making up new requirements like no bark or 3 branches. Why doesn't she tell you all the requirements before you start the puzzle? So it's another long puzzle which depends mostly on luck. This game has too many of those. Since you can only pick up one piece of driftwood at a time, the puzzle takes even longer. Nancy should just take the perch and leave. Or she could use a piece of driftwood for the astrolabe. Apparently they're all the same height. You put the perch and the astrolabe on top of Bat Steep. Nancy notices someone moving through the bushes. She's looking in Johnny's direction, so it really shouldn't be that much of a surprise. When Nancy tells George, she says it looked like a group of people were running around, but it does not. It looks like a tree branch moved slightly. You use the astrolabe to find 2 islands. You could do the math with numbers in El Toro's journal, but I find it easier to check all the locations until you get the correct ones. Dove Isle is to the northeast. It has a pedestal of sundials labeled Atosha. Nancy needs to know the date it sank, so she calls George. Nancy has terrible timing because monkeys steal the Atosha coin from the shed 10 seconds later. The monkeys are so loud, I don't know how George didn't hear them coming. George has to win a game against the middle monkey to get the coin back. Nancy has to set the sundials to the date on the coin. This is an okay puzzle which has been in several games of the series. Solving it gives you the rules of conduct and a coin puzzle. Nancy uses the metal detector at Shark Cove. She finds a bunch of random garbage, including all the pieces for the coin puzzle. I don't like this puzzle. I've never solved the coin puzzle on my own. I don't think I could. I'd get stuck on the fact that there are 6 coins in the puzzle, but only 3 in the puzzle solution. There's nothing to indicate half the coins should be ignored. Players just have to figure that out on their own. Even if you magically know the solution requires 3 coins, it's still tough. You have to rotate the coins and slide them into the center so they perfectly match the owl outline. Yeah. Half Moon Reef is to the southeast. You have to dodge jellyfish while swimming here. There's a minor puzzle to lure an octopus out of a cave. You grab a shell from the lower left and you put it on a specific rock outside of the octopus cave that forces the octopus to move outside. I like this puzzle. I also like the puzzle in the cave. It's known as a matchstick puzzle. You have to move lines on the board to make squares. There are 3 rounds of the puzzle, you get 1 more square each time, so it's getting progressively harder. I think it's a good puzzle. I don't like the puzzle of going back up to the surface. Nancy has to move slowly, or else she dies. But she has to move quickly to dodge jellyfish and avoid running out of air. It's not too fun, I would have gotten rid of it. The other scuba diving areas don't have challenges for surfacing. Why does this one have a surfacing challenge? El Toro's last major puzzle is diving at Blue Hole. It's too dark to see, so Nancy has to get underwater glow sticks from Johnny. Why does he have underwater glow sticks? I don't know. Johnny forces Nancy to program his GPS. There's a map with 8 locations on it. You have to figure out the coordinates for each location based on the fact that each line represents 3 minutes. This is an okay puzzle. There are a lot of math puzzles in this game, I noticed. At Blue Hole, the pathways are marked with the symbols from the Bat Cave. Follow them in the order they appear in El Toro's journal, or just guess. You want to keep going right until you get to the far right side of the maze. It's pretty easy to guess the solution. The maze ends with the dials puzzle. Each dial has an animal on it, and there are animal names hidden in the rules of conduct. You place the dials in the correct order, and you rotate them so their sides are matching. It's a good puzzle. I just wish it wasn't underwater, far away from the air, because there's too much pressure to solve it quickly. Luckily, there's an air tank on the other side of the wall. I wonder who put it there, because it sure wasn't El Toro. Maybe it was a treasure hunter who had to end their search here because they couldn't solve the hourglass puzzle. The hourglass puzzle is universally disliked. You have to flip all the hourglasses in a specific order at specific times. That way they all run out at the same time. This is very annoying and not fun. Even if you have the correct solution written out ahead of time, it can be difficult. I have gotten comments from people who are copying the solution in my video, but they still can't get it right. Like, even if you're using a stopwatch, it's tough. Oh, and if you mess up too often, you die. So there's that too. Solving the puzzle gets you a key and a treasure chest. Nancy completely ignores the treasure chest, which makes no sense to me. It's treasure. Instead, Nancy takes a small stone map, which is unremarkable. Once Nancy returns to George, she has a new message from the kidnappers. They want Nancy to deliver the map to Johnny Roll. George offers to help by coming with, or checking out the area in advance. Sorry, George, but your name isn't in the title of this game. You can't be the hero. Come to think of it, why haven't they thoroughly searched Johnny's area? Nancy spends more time looking for Cuckoo's perch than she does looking for clues about Bess's abduction. Johnny refuses to take the map from Nancy. He tells her to watch him, then takes off his disguise. The culprit reveal is fantastic. I loved seeing Dwayne's triumphant return to the series. He was a memorable culprit because he's so overly dramatic and stay tuned for danger. It's great to see him come back and continue being overly dramatic. I especially like the pose he makes when clenching his fist in triumph while pointing the other hand to the sky. I was brilliant! I assume they picked Dwayne because he's the first culprit of the series. The culprit from the first game doesn't count because Mitch is only on screen for 10 seconds, max. The scene starts with the hilarious joke of Nancy not remembering Dwayne's name. She remembers Rick Arlen, but not Dwayne. Ouch, that's gotta hurt Dwayne's ego. Nancy starts guessing names that start with the letter D until Dwayne interrupts her. It's so funny, I like it. Dwayne says he went to prison for several years. He met one of the monkey researchers who had El Toro's journal. They knew the journal led to the City of Gold, but they got stuck on the very first puzzle. That's when Dwayne concocted the kidnapping plan to force Nancy to solve all the puzzles for him. Dwayne says he was brilliant the whole time and his acting skills were so good, Nancy was completely fooled. He's right that he fooled Nancy completely, but I think that's more because Nancy was dumb in this game, not because his acting was good. While I loved the scene with Dwayne, I have a few nitpicks. They could have tried harder to make Dwayne look and sound the way he did in Game 2. The voice actor doesn't even try to do an imitation of Dwayne, he just uses his Frank Hardy voice. As for looks, the hair is different, now it's rounded on top, and I'm half convinced the shape of his head changes when he goes from Johnny to Dwayne. It's hard to tell because the beard is gone. I checked, and they don't actually show him taking off the beard when he removes his disguise. They only show him removing the bandana. Where did the beard go? Dwayne traps Nancy in a net, just like he did earlier. I'm kind of annoyed at how Nancy realizes he's going to trap her, but she does nothing to stop it. She had enough time to dodge out of the way. The next thing we see is Nancy inside a pit. She tries stalling Dwayne, but it doesn't work. He rolls a rock over the top, and we finally get to see Bess. Bess's appearance was well done. She babbles a lot, just like in Legend of the Crystal Skull. She says something different if you found her bracelet by the coin puzzle. Sadly, Bess does not do anything after this reunion scene. She just stands in place and watches Nancy. Nancy uses the key from the hourglass puzzle to open the door to El Toro's room. There is an optional puzzle sequence in this room leading to hidden treasure. It is kind of neat. It's like a bonus for the extra observant players. You figure it out based on the illustrations in El Toro's journal. I like it better than the actual final puzzle of the game. The final puzzle's terrible. There are 19 keyholes which move positions every time you look at the door. You need to follow the 7 clues in the journal to figure out which one is correct. The clues are on the last page of the journal, so you have to flip through the entire thing to get to them. It's annoying. I found a cheater solution while writing this review. If the upper left keyhole is a wave, the solution is the bottom left keyhole. That's always true. So hey, now this puzzle shouldn't be difficult anymore. We've got a cheater solution. You have to open the door using the key from the skeleton. I don't like that. The 2 keys in Nancy's inventory look similar. It's too easy to fail the puzzle because you picked the wrong key by accident. The ending scene is great. George is on the dock signaling a plane. Bess says they're amazing, and she calls to George. George runs over and hugs her. The ending letter has some questionable graphics. The characters don't look right, and they photoshopped real people into the pictures. The same is true of the ending letters in the last 2 games. I don't know why they didn't put more effort into the ending scenes. It feels bad to end the game with unfinished graphics. Nancy says George got the phone to work just in time for them to be rescued by the police. Dwayne's boat was found empty in the ocean. I think they left Dwayne's fate open-ended so they could bring him back in a later game if they wanted to. Sadly, this game was not good enough to deserve a direct sequel, so we never find out what happened to Dwayne. Maybe he's dead? Maybe he's rich beyond his wildest dreams. The Gibsons missed everything because they were on vacation. They were very confused when they returned. Nancy and her friends turned down their offer to have a real vacation on Dread Isle. I don't blame them for wanting to get out of this game as quickly as possible. It was a pretty bad game. It does have some good points. I like the scenery, the music, the returning culprit, and seeing Bess and George for the first time. Some of the puzzles are terrible, like the hourglass puzzle, not final key puzzle, but I think the puzzles are good overall. I would recommend this game to someone who's a big fan of puzzles, because this game prioritizes the puzzles over almost everything else. I like the puzzles a lot, so I've noticed I like this game more than other people usually do. I still have to admit, the haters are right, this is a bad game. The mystery is terrible, it desperately needs more characters and story. I give Nancy Drew Ransom of the 7 Ships a 3 out of 10.